Tall tales are stories about unusual characters or adventures that have been handed down by families or groups of people. Some tall tales are about real people. Others are about make-believe characters or explain why things are a certain way. Tall tales are also called folk stories. American Indian tribes have folk stories that have been preserved for thousands of years. Let's watch and listen to such a story, The Legend of Sleepy Bear.
Hi, I'm Margaret King Ahmed. I'm the parent involvement educator in the Dearborn schools. You might have seen me in the schools. I go to the elementary, middle, and high schools to give parents helpful tips on parenting. But today, I have a different role. I'm going to read a story for March's Reading Month because I know the importance of reading. I know how important it is for me, and I know how important it is for all of you out there to grow yourselves and learn new things. This book that I've chosen for you today is called The Legend of the Sleepy Bear. This is, by the way, a legend that the Ojibwe of Michigan, they were the first people to actually tell this story of the Sleeping Bear Dunes, and they tell it in this legend, The Legend of the Sleepy Bear. Here's the cover of this book that I'm going to read, so in case you want to look this up in the library and check it out for yourself. This is by Kathy Jo Worgen, illustrated by Gisbert van Frankenhuizen. All right, let's begin. The Legend of Sleepy Bear. Long, long ago, before voyagers paddled canoes down rivers and streams, before mighty lumbermen cleared forests with sharp, shiny axes, before wooden ships carried sailors across great freshwater seas, there was a beautiful forest near the edge of a mighty lake. Today we know that forest as part of Wisconsin, and the mighty lake is called Lake Michigan. But this was a time before many places had names or people. It was a time before farmers and Native Americans planted cherry and apple trees in long, neat rows. It was a time before pioneers planted colorful gardens of pumpkins, potatoes, and corn. In this forest near the edge of the lake lived Mother Bear. Her fur was blacker than the darkest night. Her eyes were large and round. Mother Bear had 2 cubs, and they were very soft and playful. The 3 of them lived together in a small, cozy den nestled among bluebells and buttercups. Every morning, as the wood thrush softly sang, pip, 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 and chickadees called chickadee-dee-dee from the trees, Mother Bear and her cubs would lumber through the forest to the banks of the birch-lined stream. Deer would gently bend their slender necks to sip the cool water, and raccoons would quickly wash their faces. Mother Bear and her cubs would step carefully into the stream, and as the fresh, clear water trickled by, Mother Bear would teach her cubs how to snatch plump, colorful trout for breakfast. Afterward, they would sit lazily on the banks, nibbling blueberries and hazelnuts. Every afternoon, Mother Bear would lead her cubs through the forest to the edge of the mighty lake. This lake was so big they could not see the other side, and the water seemed to disappear into the sky. The bears would frolic along the sandy shore, happily splashing in the shallows and chasing herring gulls. They tugged at each other's tails and took long, cool baths. Every evening, Mother Bear led her cubs back to their warm, cozy den where she cradled them in her big black paws and held them gently while they went to sleep. One morning, as they were lumbering along to the birch-lined stream, there was a loud crash of thunder and a sharp, hissing sound. Snap! Pop! Mother Bear stood on her hind feet and stuck her nose in the air. A brilliant orange blaze flashed through the trees, and dark clouds filled the sky. Fire! Mother Bear rushed her cubs to the banks of the stream and ordered them to follow it to the shore of the mighty lake. Bears dashed rapidly, deer sprang back and forth, and wolves ran wildly. Even the star-nosed mole hurried out from beneath the cover of the forest floor. As they reached the shore, Mother Bear gathered her cubs and shouted, "Children, we must go! We must swim across the mighty lake! My children, I love you so!" They leaped into the water and began to swim. The lake was very deep. The water was cold. The waves were tall and the wind was strong. They paddled hard and fast. Mother Bear pleaded, "My children, do you promise that you'll swim with all your might? If we are to reach the other side, we must swim throughout the night." The faithful cubs promised their mother that they would swim with all their might. They swam and they swam, growing weary and tired. They swam as the afternoon sun grew large and warm. They swam as the sun slipped below the horizon and the air grew cold. And as they swam, Mother Bear kept turning her large black face to make sure her cubs were not far behind. She watched as their paws struggled against the water, and as their soft round faces became smaller and smaller between the waves of the mighty lake. Mother Bear grew worried. Soon nighttime fell upon them. The sky grew dark, and the stars began to shine. Suddenly, the air seemed quiet, and the water became very still. In the distance, Mother Bear heard the thrill of screech owls and the howling of timber wolves. Mother Bear kept looking back as she swam throughout the night. Through her tired eyes, she noticed the morning sun was beginning to rise and cast its bright rays upon the deep blue water. She looked back once more, but could not see her cubs. Mother Bear collapsed on the banks of the shore. Her wet, heavy paws sank into the deep sand. There were rolling hills and huge mounds of sand all around her, and the land seemed very strange. Mother Bear paced up and down the water's edge, but her cubs were nowhere to be found. Her wet fur gleamed in the fresh morning sunlight, and tears shone in her eyes. Mother Bear cried, "My children, are you coming? You are strong and you are clever. My children, can you hear me? I will wait for you forever." Mother Bear climbed to the top of the highest hill. She looked out over the dark, deep water, but saw no sign of her cubs. Mother Bear called throughout the day, "My children, can you hear me? I know you must be near. My children, I am waiting high up here." Mother Bear waited until the sun set and another night fell upon her. She waited while the sun came up again in the morning. She waited while wild pink roses bloomed all around her, and while baby white-throated sparrows learned how to fly. She waited while the grasses on the distant dune became yellow and dull. She waited while the leaves fell from the beech trees. Mother Bear waited while the air grew colder and snowflakes floated down from thick, dark winter clouds. She waited and waited. Mother Bear waited. But her cubs never reached the shore. And high upon the hill, Mother Bear fell fast asleep in her sorrow. Years passed, and the winds of Lake Michigan blew blankets of sand upon her, keeping her warm and safe in her slumber. Over time, the Great Spirit of the land felt her sadness, recognizing her dedication and love for her children. With a tremendous gust of wind, the Spirit brought the cubs near shore, raising them up out of the water as two magnificent islands, placing them forever within the watchful and caring eyes of the Mother Bear. The cubs now stand suspended in time as the North and South Manitou Islands. Happy to be near their mother once again, they rest in the spirit of their mother's love. 2 islands of gleaming sand edged by waters that sparkle and dance in the sunlight. Now Mother Bear can finally rest with great happiness, knowing her cubs are near. And today, when the world is quiet and the sun begins to set, you can still hear her voice echoing in the wind that blows across Lake Michigan. My children, as the years may pass and time slips through our hands, my love will linger near the shore in the blowing sands. I'll send you kisses in the wind to let you know I'm here. Sleeping near the water's edge, I am always near. My children, you can rest assured that we are now together, and I am watching over you and loving you forever. I hope you enjoyed that story of the legend of the Sleeping Bear. Thank you for listening.
See in the picture how the mounds of the dunes that is taken looks just like Mother Bear curled up in the sand. American Indian culture is an important part of our country's traditions. The United States government recognizes more than 500 different Native Americans. Every tribe is unique. We are going to learn about an American Indian tribe in our area. The Potawatomi belonged to the alliance known as the Three Fires. That was started long ago among 3 brothers who shared similar land and background. All are of the Anishinaabe that lived in the eastern part of North America. After various wars and migrations, the tribe moved to the Great Lakes area. The oldest brother, Chippewa, was given the responsibility of keeper of the faith. The middle brother, Ottawa, was the keeper of the trade. And the youngest brother, Potawatomi, was responsible for keeper of the sacred fire, called the keeper of the fire. The earliest Europeans to encounter native people in the Great Lakes area were the French voyageurs. These men were professional canoe paddlers who transported furs and other merchandise over long distances in the lakes and river systems of North America. Such explorers gave French names to many places. The French were mainly trappers and traders rather than settlers. So in general, they got along with the native people much better than the English did. The English tended to be settlers and took the land from the native inhabitants of the country. The removal period of Potawatomi history began with the treaties of the late 1800s, when the United States created reservations. The United Nations of Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi in 1829 were pressed to give up most of their land in Wisconsin and Michigan. Over the years, the U.S. reduced the reservations under pressure for more land for migrating European Americans. The final step, following the Treaty of Chicago, negotiated in 1833, it was the U.S. forced removal of the Illinois Potawatomi to Nebraska and the Indiana Potawatomi to Kansas. Menominee was the chief of the largest Potawatomi community in Indiana. Although he resisted removal in 1838, he and the Potawatomi of Indiana were forcibly removed to Indiana Territory, from Indiana Territory to Kansas by the United States Army. The removal of the Indiana Potawatomi became known as the Potawatomi Trail of Death. Typhoid fever and stress of the forced march led to the death of many, mostly children. In 1909, the state of Indiana erected a statue of Chief Menominee near the town of Plymouth. It is the first monument that any state ever erected to a Native American. Some Potawatomi found a way to remain, primarily those in Michigan. Others fled to the Ottawa neighbors in Canada to avoid removal. Taking over for Topinabee who had died in 1826. Leopold Pokagon became the head of the Potawatomi of the St. Joe River Valley in Michigan. Pokagon emerged as a very successful tribal leader. Pokagon traveled to Detroit in July of 1930 to request the services of the Black. Pokagon traveled to Detroit in July of 1830 to request the services of the Black Robe, referred to the black robes traditionally worn by Catholic priests. He believed that affiliation with the Catholic Church represented an important alliance in the struggle to avoid removal. That same year, Pokagon and his wife were baptized along with numerous fellow band members. In August of 1830, a mission was established to serve the Pokagon Potawatomi. By converting to Catholicism, the Potawatomi of the St. Joe River Valley affirmed a new identity as the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi. And at the treaty negotiations held in Chicago in 1833, Pokagon secured a special provision to stay in Michigan and avoid removal. Pokagon ultimately used the money received in the treaty to purchase land for his people near Dowagiac, Michigan. He patented the land in his name and became a private landowner, just like the migrating settlers. In the early 1920s, the Potawatomi were still essentially rural folk, working small farms, orchards, and vineyards. They would also make maple sugar, hunt for small game, and engage in berry collecting. A few traditional crafts were also actively pursued, especially the production of large quantities of various kinds and sizes of utilitarian baskets. These were sold or traded in rural market centers. Through the mid-1930s, numbers of Potawatomi would arrive at Notre Dame bearing wagon loads of varied basketworks several times a year. They would exchange the baskets for food, never settling on trading value. They did this to show that they were not beggars. Notre Dame would feed the visitors at their central kitchens, sometimes as many as 130 people. Each family would be given a basket of food staples from Notre Dame as well. Often many of the Potawatomi would arrive festively dressed in their traditional garb. University account sheets record that the Pokagons supplied the large university community with all of its container needs, including laundry baskets, waste baskets, grocery baskets, and so on for many, many years. 2 activity crafts have been included in your packet. Make a woven basket like the Potawatomis did. The other activity is an Ojibwa dream catcher. The Ojibwa people created dream catchers to hang over the beds of people who were sleeping, especially children. They believed that the night air held dreams, both good ones and bad ones. The dream catcher would let the good dreams get through to the sleepers. Bad dreams would be caught in the dream catcher's web and would disappear at daybreak.